I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's good to see everybody here in this room today and all of those of you on Zoom. And we have a multitude on Zoom today. Hopefully this is just an anomaly and not our practice, but regardless of how we get you here, we're just glad we're all in attendance today. This is obviously, as I'm stating now, a hybrid meeting. On the outset, those of you in the room, remember your microphones are very sensitive, so please turn those off while you're not using them. We'll do the votes as we have in the past, where they'll all be Adam calling the roll and looking for yays and nays. And a big reminder today is that we're going to do a closed session of this meeting. It's noted on the agenda. When we do that, members of the public will be asked to leave the room, and those who are attending in Zoom will leave this meeting link and go to a second meeting link. As I look into your eyes, you all look like you understand and know that, and will happily maneuver that. If you don't, you know how to get a hold of Adam, who generally talks us through all of these critical technology issues. I think we're ready for you, Adam, to go ahead and explain, how those in the public can engage in the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I will give instructions for this meeting. We are using the Zoom webinar platform for board members who are attending remotely, and we will support public participation during this meeting. If you are connecting by phone, please be sure to mute your microphones or phone by dialing *6 to mute and unmute. When you are called upon to speak, please eliminate background noise before unmuting your microphone. If we missed you, please send a written comment to publiccomment@bscc.ca.gov. The email is available on our website as well. Board members in person and on Zoom, if you wish to make a comment on any of the agenda items, please use the raised hand feature. If you are on the Zoom, or physically raise your hand so we can see you. For members in the boardroom, please state your name before you make your comment so that those participating remotely may know who is speaking. We will give the members of the public the opportunity to comment after the presentation of each agenda item and prior to the board voting on an item. Agenda item 6 is the opportunity for any member of the public to make a comment on any agenda items or other comments in general. You will have 2 minutes for your comment. Participants on Zoom who wish to make a public comment, again, please email publiccomment@bscc.ca.gov with your name and agenda item you'd like to comment on. If you can also use the raised hand feature on your Zoom application. If you are calling by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. I will call out your phone number you dialed in with. Unmute your phone by dialing *6. We will lower your hand once your name is received. You do not need to raise your hand again. We will record your name as soon as we see your hand. Please be patient. I will call your name. Public participants in the boardroom, please complete the public comment card on the table by the entry door and provide it to me during the meeting. All agenda items that require a vote during this meeting will require a roll call vote, and I will call out each board member's name at the end of each agenda item. As Chair Penner stated, board members in the room, please turn off your microphones when you are not speaking. Remote members and the public on Zoom, please also mute yourselves when you are not speaking. We thank you for your patience and participation. Madam Chair, that concludes my instructions.
Thank you, Adam. And I think the one takeaway I got was apparently we have to be very patient. So here we go. Adam, will you please take the roll?
Chair Penner.
Present.
Miss Allison.
Present.
Mr. Villarosa.
Present.
Gordon.
Here.
Mr. Dykes. Mr. Dykes,
Well, on my other hand.
Mr. Dykes, we see you, but
I don't see Sheriff Dykes.
he is on the panelist list.
Can we
I'll move-
promote him, or is he? to the screen.
He is not on the screen. Can we ask him to turn his camera on? Okay, we'll move on to Mr. Haynes,
Present.
Miss Vernon,
Present.
Miss Guard,
Here.
Mr. Mills,
I'm here.
Mr. Budnick,
Here.
Mr. Garcia,
Here.
Miss Kumpion,
Here.
Mr. Dykes.
I sent a request. Oh, there we
Oh.
go.
I'm here.
There you go.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let the record reflect there were 2 people that came into Sheriff Dyke's office to get him to be on board. So it's good to have good technical assistance. Those of you who have done it alone, just remember you're strong and you're solid. I'd like to now, we lost him again.
But Cindy, we haven't called Cindy yet.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was present. Thank you.
Oh, thank you Supervisor Chavez, and let the record reflect Adam made a mistake, which rarely happens. Thank you for all of you being here, and I look forward to see you in person sometime soon. This is the time designated for the chair's report, and I would briefly like to report out, and I look for Mr. Budnick to add anything he would like to my report out on this issue. We went to the LA County, we didn't go to Central, we went to, I'm sorry, we went to Nidorf. Yeah, I think people noted it as, we went to Nidorf to visit. As you will all recall, there were a number of things that were mentioned at our last meeting, a great deal of concern about things that are going on in LA County. Mr. Budnick, who's frequently in the LA County facilities, suggested we went down for a visit. Myself, Allison Ganter, and Mr. Budnick toured Nidorf, and I will tell you that we saw some things that were moving in the right direction and positive. There still are issues in LA that we will continue to keep our eyes on and pay close attention to, but it was helpful for me to get a bird's eye view, be with the executives in that agency and tour that facility after we had gone through so much consternation about what's going on in LA. And I'd ask Mr. Budnick to add anything to these remarks, if you'd like to.
I think you covered it. I think more than anything, LA just needs to figure out and come up with a plan for the youth that would have been in DJJ that are now under their jurisdiction in SYTF. There doesn't seem to be much of a plan. They've had months to put together a plan. And so I think our visit may have lit some fires, and hopefully we'll have a real plan that's going to work for these young people in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I appreciate your remarks, and I think that's exactly what happened. I think we were very curious about a plan, and hopefully that we've created an environment where the plans will begin to come together, and we look forward to that in the future. I'm now going to ask Executive Director Howard to give her report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board, both in the room and on the Zoom. I'm Katie Howard, the Executive Director of the BSCC, and I'm happy to be here to provide several information items to you, starting as usual with the COVID-19 update. And my colleague Sean is putting the slides up right now. As we usually do, we will start with a review of the adult detention facilities across the state and the overall recent population trends. I'm just going to wait a moment while Sean gets this up on the full screen. Can our Zoom folks, could somebody indicate if you can see that? I'm assuming yes. Okay, this slide shows the average daily population since February of 2020, just before the beginning of the pandemic. And you can see, as we do with all of our reviews at each meeting, the population plummeted initially, reached a low point, I believe in May of 2020. And since December of 2020, the ADP has ranged from 59,000 to 61,000. In recent weeks, that ADP has increased and is now around 62,000 statewide in the adult facilities. Next slide shows the current trends on COVID-19 cases. The number of confirmed positive cases has held relatively steady after there was an increase in January of this year. You can see the last week we have reported is August 20th. So here we are at September 8th. Those case numbers, it's my understanding, have continued to come down a little bit. There's been a slight decline in the recent weeks. And you can see that the confirmed positive cases thankfully have dropped. So this slide shows the number of people tested and the number of confirmed positive cases. I always like to give the reminder that the public health guidance that we have received and given to the local facilities is that if the number of cases is fewer than 10, it's only reported as fewer than 10. So we always show a band, and the numbers are reliably closer to that lower part of the band. So between 121 and 418 confirmed positive cases for the last week that was reported, definitely much closer to that 121 number. The next slide shows, hold on a second. I think I have a repeat in my notes. Okay, here we have the positivity rate, which again is in that band between 1.19 and 4% positive, definitely closer to 1.19, and a very small number of hospitalizations in the recent weeks. I think that what we're seeing in very general terms with the recent variants of COVID-19 is that it is highly, highly transmissible. But for most people, the symptoms are not as severe and numbers of hospitalizations are much smaller compared to earlier variants of this virus. So let's see, on the next slide, we will move to the juvenile detention facilities. And again, starting with the overall average daily population across the state, similar to the adult facilities, huge reduction early in the pandemic, and those numbers have bounced around a bit and have now settled close to 2,400 in August of 2022. So turning to the next slide, the case trends of COVID-19. The first part of this chart shows you the total number of juveniles tested. And you can see that there's a band there again, and the number of confirmed positive cases. I do want to attend to the numbers just a little bit, because we noticed that in San Diego County Juvenile Detention Facility, there was an outbreak. I believe we learned that 22 youth tested positive earlier in August. I asked our team to check in on the status. They did have an outbreak. The youth have recovered. They do not have positive cases now, and none of the youth needed hospitalization, and the symptoms were relatively manageable, thank goodness. So those numbers have started to come down again, and you'll see that in the report that we provide the next time. So there were a few more than what we have seen in terms of positive cases for the period of this report. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, which shows the positivity rate. Again, same thing as before. There's a band, and the San Diego numbers are the ones that made that jump up a little bit higher. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my report on COVID-19, and I'd like to move to a variety of other updates. Unless there are any burning questions from the board on the COVID report. Okay, hearing none. As we move to other agenda items, I would like to start by noting consent item D. That item requests the board's approval to update our grant proposal evaluation process with procedures for emergency grants. And the background on this is that in the 2021 audit of the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund, which is CESF, the state auditor recommended that the BSCC develop grant policies and procedures for allocating future emergency funds. So we have done that, and we proposed some language that takes care of emergency funding that may come to the board in the future at a very high level of detail, because that's the nature of emergency planning. So in a very straightforward fashion, we have stated that the board will provide guidance to staff on the appropriate manner to administer emergency funds. We have flexibility to modify the steps in the grant proposal process to ensure the timely administration of emergency funds. We have the ability to offer guidance on an alternate grant development process to ensure that the funding is released timely. And we would just note that when there is an emergency funding situation, we would likely use the flexibility to not take the typical 12-month period that we do for a competitive grant process. So we reduce that timeline as may be needed, but still we will comply with all the applicable state and federal legislative requirements. Any questions from the board on that item? Looking at the Zoom folks as well. Okay, great. Thank you. As you will see, our discussion agenda items primarily address issues connected to grants. And I really want to specifically acknowledge Ricardo Goodrich, Rosa Pargas, and all of their teams for the outstanding and voluminous work that they are doing. As you know, we have numerous new grants that came in this year's budget, and we're in the process of launching the grant development processes on all of those new grants. Thanks also to the board members who have agreed to chair executive steering committees for the new grants. I want to mention that in the waning hours of the legislative session, some additional funding, including one competitive grant, came to the BSCC. And the Budget Bill Junior, as it's called, AB 179, provides $10 million for a medication assisted treatment grant. MAT is the abbreviation that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The grant program was authorized in a separate bill, AB 653. So that came in just at the very end of the session. And at our November meeting, the CPGP team will bring an agenda item proposing the launch of the MAT grant. Today, you'll be reviewing draft RFPs on some of our significant ongoing grants, and I want to mention both Prop 64 and Burn JAG. As our field representatives, Helene Zentner and John Prince, will soon explain, we are recommending some modifications to the grant process in order to get the funding out to the field timely. For a variety of reasons, we've had some difficulties in securing volunteers to participate as members of our executive steering committees. As members of this board and our staff will recall, a few years ago, with Prop 47 being a prime example, we would have dozens and dozens of people volunteering to serve on executive steering committees, and that is no longer the case. We have made repeated efforts and asked for help from the many organizations who are involved with our work and interested in our work to say, please volunteer to participate in this important process, but still we have not received enough volunteers to populate executive steering committees. We think some of this has to do with pandemic fatigue, and also there's the fact that some subject matter experts who may want to apply for the funds are not able to sit on the ESCs because of conflict of interest requirements. The team and I have talked about ways to further enhance our recruitment efforts, but in the case of JAG and Prop 64, we're proposing modifications to our usual development procedure for the next RFPs, and so that's what I wanted to bring to your attention. Rather than having new executive steering committees come together to review and revise the RFPs, instead, we're recommending to the board today some RFP modifications that change some of the grant details, including maximum funding levels in the case of Prop 64 and expanding the program purpose areas for Burn JAG, which we already brought those strategic planning results to you at the last meeting. We will release the proposed RFPs with the changes noted. They'll be posted for 30-day public comment period on our website. And then in consultation with the ESC chairs, we will bring any substantive RFP modifications back to the board if needed. With all of these steps, we think the integrity of the grant development process is preserved. After the RFPs are revised and updated, we will convene scoring panels. And in the event that we do not have sufficient volunteers for that role, we're asking for the board's permission to permit BSC staff as raters on those scoring panels if it is needed. Are there any questions from the board about that right now? You may want to raise those later in the agenda, but just for clarity, any questions? Okay, hearing none. I also want to highlight agenda item I, which proposes 2 projects that focus on improving our Prop 47 grant program. The ongoing funding in that Prop 47 grant provides important resources both for public agencies and the community-based organizations that they subcontract with to offer mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, and diversion programs. And these grants are intended to reduce recidivism. From the time we launched the first cohort, we've put significant emphasis on collecting and analyzing data about the Prop 47 grants. Now that 3 cohorts have been funded, we want to take a pause and analyze how we might increase the number of applicants seeking Prop 47 grants. You'll hear about a project to do just that. And we want to get information about how we can better inform the field about the purpose and availability of this grant funding. In addition, we're proposing an analysis of current grantees' experiences in reaching Hispanic, Latino, Latina participants in their grant programs. Our outstanding researcher, Stacy Riley, has looked into participation data at a very deep level and has found that we have some disproportionality based on populations in the areas where we have Prop 47 grants. We would hope to be reaching more Latino, Hispanic participants. So we want to understand that better. We're proposing some focus group interviews to find out ways to better engage, recruit, and retain Latino participants. So I just wanted to highlight these projects as they're an example of the efforts we are making to improve our grants on an ongoing basis. And finally, I want to mention that we're moving to a new online program for the submission of grants. And I believe that Prop 64 and JAG will be our pilot cases for that. We're using new software and it's called Submittable. So our strong hope is that this software will help to address some of the issues that can lead to technical disqualification of grant applications. So the software will prompt the applicant to address something like, this budget number doesn't match this other budget number, or you have to stay within a certain number of pages and margins and font size and all of that. The software will support ensuring that these technical issues are addressed. We've had to disqualify many applications on some of our large grants for technical issues such as these, and we're really hopeful that the software will help to address those issues. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board? I can say, Katie, lots going on at the BSCC. While there were no questions about the.
Your mic is off, Linda.
Actually, it's green.
You weren't
Pull
hearing
closer.
anything.
Sorry. Thanks, Sean. When we discussed this executive steering committee process that we're modifying, it's complicated, but I encourage all of us to pay close attention to that. We've had to make some modifications based on real-time issues that we face as a board, and I appreciate staff's willingness to step up and take care of things for us as we change, shift, and modify to get things done. With that said, I will move to Aaron for a legal update.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. A couple of things just as a brief legal update. As always, I'd like to highlight conflict issues at the outset. We have several grants that we'll be discussing in the action items. Please take a look at those grants and decide whether or not you may want to recuse yourself. At the outset, I would note for Prop 64, I believe we will want Chief Mills to recuse himself. And then we have the JAG items, which quite frequently our county board members will want to recuse on those items. And then for items G and H, we will definitely ask our ARC board members to recuse on those items. And of course, if you have any other items, after you look at those items that you want to recuse on, just let us know at the outset before we take those agenda items up. On another matter, Madam Chair, I actually do have a true legal update, which is a recent decision out of the Ninth Circuit that was filed a few weeks ago, the City and County of San Francisco versus Garland, which is the final piece of litigation involving our burn JAG funding back from about 5 years ago. For the board members who are here or not here may remember, the state of California sued the federal government regarding the use of our federal funding, including the RSAT, the JAG grants, and Title II in terms of additional conditions related to immigration enforcement that were included in those grant agreements. California, along with several other jurisdictions, sued over those conditions and prevailed. The litigation continued up to the Ninth Circuit primarily dealing with a issue involving the constitutionality of a federal statute in question, which was 8 USC 1373, which we've discussed before. It did not affect the outcome of the case. And the case basically concluded saying that the lower court didn't have to reach the constitutionality of that statute in order to render a judgment. But in all other matters, the case was affirmed, in which case the state of California prevailed. The Biden administration has indicated they're not going to enforce the provisions that the Trump administration imposed. And so the JAG money is now basically free and clear for us to continue to expend and for our counties to continue to expend. So that is the end of the burn JAG saga. And then finally, I would just note that we will be moving into closed session soon. You should have received a calendar link that everyone should be able to access, and we will ask you to exit this meeting and go into that closed session after the consent calendar. And with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my update.
Thank you, Aaron. Adam, legislative update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The legislative session ended on August 31st, 2022. The governor has until September 30th to sign or veto bills that made it to his desk. As the end of session, there are only a few bills that impact the BSCC directly. Other bills of interest are under tab 4 of your reading materials. A few of note are AB 2343 by Assembly Member Dr. Akilah Weber would add 2 additional board members to the current 13-member board, a mental health care provider and a licensed healthcare provider. It would also require the board to promulgate regulations on safety checks and intake, which have already been taken care of in the adult regulations revisions. Most notably, would also require 4 hours of mental health and behavioral health content as part of the annual training for correctional officers. AB 731 by Assembly Member Bauer Kahan would require the sheriff of each county to submit to the BSCC specified recidivism data until 2027. And lastly, a bill of note that addresses segregated confinement, AB 2632 by Assembly Member Holden. This bill would require local detention facilities to develop written procedures on segregated confinement. It would also require the BSCC to monitor for compliance and report to the legislature annually. We will update you on the final outcomes of these bills at our November meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my legislative update. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions, comments from the board on any information items that were presented today? Seeing none. Adam, do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on information items presented?
We currently have 1 member of the public, and that would be Nancy Juarez.
Nancy? Are
Good
you
morning,
there?
everyone. Yep. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Good morning. My name is Nancy Juarez with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. I wanted to say that while the BSCC's COVID-19 dashboard is a critical resource for community members, its data is not representative of true numbers of COVID infection. Sacramento County continues to refuse to report data to the BSCC dashboard. Meanwhile, LA County holds the largest total jail population of any county in the state and reports next to no COVID-19 testing data. LA is responsible for the well-being of over 13,000 incarcerated people, yet the LA County Sheriff's Department has failed to meaningfully increase testing during the current surge of COVID. As long as some counties continuously fail to submit their COVID testing data for staff and incarcerated people, the BSCC COVID dashboard remains incomplete. We ask that the BSCC require counties to upload this crucial data and that they establish a routine screen testing requirement for all local and juvenile detention facilities. This will ensure that all incarcerated people and staff are tested on a regular basis to identify asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more public comments for information items, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Adam. We're now at our consent item portion of the board meeting, and that is item A through D. looking to the board, if there's any items you'd like to pull or comment on at this juncture. I don't see anybody. I do see a hand up, Miguel.
Yes, I would like to comment on item C of the adult Title 15 regulations. As a member of the minors in detention work group, I just want to, show my gratitude to those that actually just put on the adult Title 15 regulation revision process. It was in the midst of the pandemic. There was a lot going on, and I believe the staff of the BSCC showed true intent of wanting to revise these revisions with expanding the time to get input and to be really intentional of what things were bringing up to attention where COVID kind of like had hidden until it kind of hit us. So I just really want to show my gratitude to that experience of being part of the minors in detention work group for these adult title regs, but to the whole staff that orchestrated this process. I just want to show and thank my gratitude for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Any other comments, questions by board members? Yes, Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you. I want to abstain on item C, in part because this was my first meeting that we voted on these, and I abstained based on the issues relative to the health of meals and nutrition. So I just want to be consistent there. And I'm going to recuse myself from item F because counties are eligible to apply.
Okay, and I think we'll hold that to the action portion of the meeting. This is thank you, Supervisor. So noted. Let's go with that. Yes, Council.
My suggestion is just to bifurcate the vote so that we will take up A, B, and D as a single motion, and then do the vote, and then take up agenda item C as a separate item.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve items A, B, and D on the consent calendar.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second.
I
Kathy
have a
Olson.
motion and a second. Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Ms. Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Verarosa,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Budnick,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries for items A, B, and D.
Thank you. And then may I have a motion for item C, please? Noting that
This-
Supervisor Chavez will be abstaining.
Dean Groudon, I'll make the motion.
And before I
Yes,
think,
Second.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure we called for public comment on the consent calendar. If we could do that now.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on the consent item?
We do not have public comment for consent items A through D.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your swift motion. I'm going to take the heat on this one. Not your fault. Should have caught it. Moving now back to item C, we have a motion. May I have a second, please?
Dykes second.
Thank you. Thank you. Adam?
Madam Chair,
Aye.
Ms. Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Verarosa,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Abstain.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Budnick,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries for agenda item C.
Thank you. At this point, we will move to the closed session portion of this agenda. I'd ask all on Zoom to sign off and sign back on. The link, does everybody have the link as I look at y'all? Okay, it looks like we got that. And I would ask everybody else not privy to this closed session to leave the room.
And before we,
I-
before we fully go to closed session, Madam Chair, I think Judge Guard wishes to remark.
Oh,
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself on this matter.
thank you.
Members of the public, we're going into a closed session. We will be back in a few minutes.
And members of the public, we think it'll be about 30 minutes. Please stand by. We'll give notice verbally when we are about to resume, and we'll have some brief transition times as we move from one link to the other. So thanks for your patience.
Okay. All right, we're going to resume the public portion of the meeting. Council?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we've concluded our closed session. Thanks for everyone's participation. And as we move to, I think, agenda item E, we would just look for recusals. This is the Prop 64 grant funds. I think Chief Mills is going to want to recuse on this item.
Okay.
All right. Just a chance. Thanks, Sheriff.
Okay, we'll give. Okay, Helene, I see you here on item E. Ready to proceed?
So we're good.
Or Cole? Yeah. There we go. And now joining us from San Diego, there they are. You were missing in action and it was suspicious. I'll just put it out there. Okay,
We're here now.
thank you, thank you. Helene?
Okay, good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Helene Zettner and I'm a field representative with the Corrections Planning and Grants Programs Division, and I'm before you presenting item E. This agenda item requests approval for the Proposition 64 Health and Safety Grant Program, or Prop 64, Cohort 3 Request for Proposals, development process, which includes the following key components. Modify the Prop 64 Cohort 2 RFP with updated funding allocations, timelines, due dates, submission instructions, and attachments, and approve as the Prop 64 Cohort 3 RFP. Post the Prop 64 Cohort 3 RFP on the BSCC website for a 30-day written public comment period. Convene a scoring panel to read and rate the Cohort 3 proposals and develop funding recommendations to the board. The Prop 64 grant program is funded through the tax revenue generated by the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. So eligibility for these grants are set forth in the California Revenue and Taxation Code, which is in pertinent part provided to you in attachment E1. Here's a brief recap on our recent work on this grant. Back in November of 2021, the board approved an executive steering committee to develop the RFP for Cohort 3 and designated board chair member Guillermo Villarosa as ESC chair. As you have heard earlier today by Executive Director Katie Howard, the ESC recruitment process began soon after that, and notices seeking ESC participation were posted on the BSCC website, shared through multi-agency emails and community partners. Due to a lower than expected interest level in the ESC membership, we have needed to modify our initial timeline. To support a prompt release of the Prop 64 funds to local governments in California, this agenda item seeks approval to release a modified version of the Prop 64 Cohort 2 RFP, reflective of staff's edits, which are contained in attachment E3. The modifications include, but are not limited to, the general edits to dates for Cohort 3 timelines. This RFP allocates in total $150 million for Cohort 3 awards. The maximum requested amount for funding for a single application has been increased to $3 million. Each city, county, or city-county will apply on an individual basis. The grant term has been increased to 5 years. All eligible applicants may apply, including those jurisdictions that are currently receiving Prop 64 funds. Project Purpose Area 1, the youth development and youth prevention and intervention requirement for proposed projects is no longer mandatory for all grants. Updates to the rating criteria to align with current research language. And applicants will be using a new online portal for proposal submittal. The Prop 64 Cohort 3 RFP will be made available for a 30-day written public comment period. And if no substantive public comments are submitted, as determined by the ESC chair, the Prop 64 Cohort 3 RFP would be released in October of 2022. If there are substantive comments are received, the ESC chair may recommend that the board consider those comments and potential revisions at the November board meeting. Staff is requesting a scoring panel be convened to read and rate the eligible proposals after being trained by BSCC research staff, as well as making funding recommendations to the board. With the board's approval, BSCC staff may consider to help supplement the scoring panel as necessary. Within item E, staff has provided an updated proposed timeline for the competitive RFP process. So staff recommends that the board, and there are 6 of them, approve the modified Prop 64 Cohort 3 RFP for posting to the BSCC website for a 30-day written public comment period. Delegate authority to the ESC chair in consultation with staff to release the Prop 64 Cohort 3 RFP if there are only minor non-substantive edits. Delegate authority to the ESC chair to consider and incorporate relevant written public comments into the Prop 64 Cohort 3 RFP for board consideration at its November meeting. Delegate authority to the ESC chair to work with staff to establish a diverse scoring panel with relevant subject matter experts to modify membership as needed, including the potential inclusion of BSCC staff as raters. Authorize the scoring panel to make funding recommendations. And finally, approve the proposed activities and tentative timeline associated with the Prop 64 Cohort 3 RFP. Thank you, and I can take any questions.
Any questions from board members? Any comments from members of the public on this item?
Yes, I do have one public commenter, and that would be Edouard.
There you are. Come forward.
Hello, thank you everyone for this opportunity. My name is Ajua Achianu and I'm a policy advocate with Youth Forward. Since 2018, my organization has been working with the various state agencies responsible for the developing grant programs funded by Prop 64 and state cannabis tax revenues. We have brought forward recommendations to these agencies based on community input. We seek to be an advisor without financial self-interest, and as such, we do not apply for Prop 64 grant funding for our organization. We are greatly concerned about the increasing cannabis use among young people and about cannabis advertising designed to appeal to children and youth. As you may know, research has shown that cannabis use by young people increases risk for mental illness, particularly use of cannabis products with high levels of THC. I have personally reported 7 different cannabis billboards here in Sacramento to the Department of Cannabis Control that have images and language meant to appeal to youth and children. For these reasons, we would like to express our support for continuing to include youth development and youth substance use prevention as an eligible activity for the Prop 64 grant program. We believe that cities which are seeking to mitigate the impact of cannabis legalization must address use of cannabis by underage youth. Finally, I would like to urge the BSCC to change how it allocates funds so that larger cities and counties are able to receive larger grants. Awarding grant funds in proportion to city and county population will ensure that larger cities have enough funds to adequately serve their communities and address issues as necessary. It does not seem fair or equitable that a small city would receive the same amount of grant funding as a very large city. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more public comments, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'm now looking for a motion, which I believe we could just have encompass all of the motions in one to adopt staff recommendation rather than recount all of those.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Vera Rosa,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon recused, Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez is not present. Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills recused, Mr. Budnick,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
May I have may I say a comment?
Yes.
I just wanted to thank the young lady who spoke here today. Number one, for coming here and using your voice to speak for our youth. I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much. And I'm going to think about you throughout my day today, but I just want to let you know, I really appreciate you coming here and I hope to encourage more people to do that and use their voice here. And I loved hearing from you today. Thanks.
Second that motion. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Norma. Moving on now to item F. John Prince. Welcome.
Madam Chair,
Hang on, we have, I apologize. Hang on just a minute, Chief. We need Chief Mills and Sheriff Groudon back and recusals.
Yeah, Sheriff Groudon has already indicated he will recuse on this item.
Okay,
and Madam Chair, this is Chief Haynes. I'll also recuse myself.
As will I. Chief Vernon.
thank you. All right, and then Sheriff Dykes, I see you. Do you have your hand up? Are you staying or going?
I'm staying.
Okay. All right. I think we've accomplished all the recusals.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, thank you. Proceed.
Start over. All right. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is John Prince, Field Representative with the Corrections Planning and Grants Programs Division. I'm here to present agenda item F. Agenda item F requests the approval of the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program, also known as the JAG grants. Request for proposal development process, which is similar to the Prop 64 process that was previously described today earlier. BSCC staff used the information and data gathered in partnership with the NCJA to draft the modified RFP, which is in your binders. The revisions include, but are not limited to, updated funding of approximately $47 million, timelines, due dates, rating criteria, and updated multi-year state strategy that was presented to the board in July of 2022, as well as different attachments. The JAG RFP will be made available for 30-day public.
For our participants on Zoom, we're swapping out a microphone for our speaker. Please stand by.
For those of you standing by, I still have a microphone. Well, in some instances. We have technical difficulties. This is why we need you all here in person in the future.
Check.
There we go. Thank you. Quick response on that.
Oh, great.
There we go, John. Thanks.
I'll back it up a little bit. The JAG RFP will be made available for 30-day public comment period. And if substantive comments are received, the ESC chair may recommend the board consider those comments and potential revisions will be brought back to the November board meeting. In conclusion, the staff recommends that the board approve the 6 items as well. Approve the revised JAG RFP for posting to the BSCC website for a 30-day public comment period. Delegate the authority to the ESC chair to consider and incorporate non-substantive public comments into the JAG RFP. Delegate authority to the ESC chair to consider and incorporate relevant written public comments into the JAG RFP for board consideration at its November board meeting. Delegate authority to the ESC chair to work with staff to establish a diverse scoring panel with relevant subject matter expertise and modified membership as needed, including potential inclusion of BSCC staff as raters. Authorize the scoring panel to make funding recommendations and approve proposed activities and a tentative timeline associated with the JAG RFP. Open for any questions or comments.
Have you identified a chair for this?
Yes, Chair Linda Pinner will be chairing that.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to everybody's attention. I appreciate that. I needed my name out there one more time. I do have a question, and I may be a little bit off subject matter. There's been a bit of a lag between our previous grant and the grant we're ready to embark upon. Is that leaving current grantees without funding for a longer period of time than?
The proposed timeline does have a slight gap in there. There was a extension to the current JAG cohort to
Right.
extend it out to March. This timeline proposes that the new grants would start in July. So there is a little bit of a gap there. However, all grant activities are required to be completed during the grant timeline. So there may be some issues with funding of positions and things like that may there may be some complications there, but the actual grant activities are set to conclude at the end of the grant anyway, even if we were to have another cohort continue right off the bat.
Yeah, I'm sure there's no assurances that somebody might get the grant one time and not have the other, but I am hearing from the field that there are some concerns about gaps in services and staffing during that interim. So just putting that out there in the universe for you. Any members of the public wish to comment on this item?
We have no members of the public for this item.
Okay, thank you. Back to the board. I'm looking for a motion that includes recommendations 1 through 6.
Kathleen Allison, motion to approve staff's recommendation.
And may I get a
Budnick,
second?
second.
Thank you very much. Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Verrosa,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon, Ms. Chavez, Mr. Haynes, Ms. Vernon recused, Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Budnick,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries for agenda item F.
Thank you. And can we invite our recusals in, even if it's for a matter of seconds while they recuse on the next item?
For agenda item G, Madam Chair, we will request board members Kumpion and Bundick to recuse themselves.
Okay. Well,
Goodbye.
when Budnick leaves, the whole
whole
screen
screen
went
went black.
dark. How'd that happen? That's how powerful that guy is.
He's our Hollywood guy.
Yeah. Did we lose it? Okay.
For people on Zoom, just please stand by for a moment. We lost the audio video for the Zoom participants here in the room, and we're attempting to fix that.
Okay. Yes. While you were gone, we rebooted. So do we have the recusals on recusal individuals back? I can't see them any longer, so. From the previous. item?
Yeah, this is Chief Haynes and Chief Vernon. We're back.
Okay, thank you. Tanya, forgive me for messing up the IT in the middle of your item. Go ahead.
Not a problem. Thank you so much. Good morning, afternoon, something like that. Greetings, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Tanya Thompson, and I am a field representative in the Corrections Planning and Grant Programs Division of the BSCC. I am before you today to present Agenda Item G. This agenda item requests approval of the 103 awards as recommended by the Executive Steering Committee of the Adult Reentry Grant Program. I have a brief PowerPoint to share with you to provide background on ARG and particulars of the funding recommendation process. I would like to take this opportunity first, however, to express my deepest gratitude to Board Member Chief Kelly Vernon for her role as the ARG ESC Chair, and to the ARG team to include our analysts, research staff, and our new field rep, Ian Silva. Everyone has worked tirelessly to get this information before you today. The Adult Reentry Grant Program, or ARG, was established in the Budget Act of 2018 and charged the BSCC with administering competitive grants to community-based organizations that support people formerly incarcerated in state prison. Upon its inception, the ARG program provided funding for 3 specific reentry activities: rental assistance, warm handoff, and rehabilitation of existing property or buildings. Since 2018, the ARG program has provided $120+ million in funding for over 114 projects to provide rental assistance and reentry services. The Budget Act of 2021 provided $67 million to be divided equally in the amount of $31.8 million each for rental assistance and warm handoff applicants, as well as $3.3 million for BSCC administrative costs. In July 2021, the board appointed Chief Kelly Vernon to serve as the chair of the ARG Executive Steering Committee. On February 10th of 2022, the board approved the release of the request for proposal with a proposal due date of April 8th of 2022. The BSCC received 163 proposals requesting approximately $218 million in funding. After a technical review process, 139 proposals met all submission criteria and moved forward in the competitive process to be considered by the ESC for funding. On June 13th and 14th of 2022, BSCC staff provided the ESC training on the proposal reading and rating process that was established in the RFP. ESC scores were due back to BSCC staff on August 1st, and BSCC staff generated a ranked list of proposals that were considered for funding. During the grant development process, the Budget Act of 2022 appropriated an additional $57 million to the ARG program. The additional funding was split between rental assistance and warm handoff, $27 million each, and 5% to BSCC for administrative costs. To meet the timely reentry needs of ARG participants, staff recommends that the board allocate the additional funding appropriated in the Budget Act of 2022 in a ranked order to the rental assistance and warm handoff proposals that met the eligibility and minimum score criteria from the rank list scored by the ESC. Additionally, as part of the 2022 Budget Act, Senate Bill 197 amended state law to require that the BSCC implement the core components of Housing First without allowing for exceptions for recovery housing programs, which had been allowed under prior iterations of the ARG program. This change in law occurred after the ARG RFP was released and before proposals were scored and submitted. As a result of this change, BSCC staff will inform ARG conditional awardees of this change in law and offer impacted grantees an opportunity to modify their proposal scope and/or budget to comply with the new law. 103 projects recommended for funding and their project summaries are included in your attachments. G2 is the list of proposals recommended for funding in ranked order, and G3 contains project summaries for proposals recommended for funding. In summary, staff recommends the board take the following actions. Fully fund 22 rental assistance proposals totaling $58.6 million. That's in your attachment G2. Partially fund one rental assistance proposal, for $254,535, which fell at the funding cutoff point in the ranked order list. Fully fund 80 warm handoff and reentry proposals totaling $56.6 million, also included in attachment G2. Authorize staff to continue to make awards from the ranked ordered list if any applicant is unable to accept the award or relinquishes an award, first by offering to any partial awardee and then to the next highest ranked applications. And authorize staff to continue to make awards from the rank ordered list if staff determined during the follow-up award-making process that an applicant recommended for funding is ineligible. If a grantee becomes ineligible during the grant cycle, or if the grant award is relinquished during the grant cycle. As a last request, staff does request that the board dissolve the Adult Reentry Grant Executive Steering Committee upon approval of the funding recommendations. This concludes my presentation, and I am happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none. Do I see a hand up?
Madam Chair, if I could briefly, this is Kelly Vernon. I just want to thank Tanya and the staff at the BSCC. This was a really great experience. And Tanya made me look smart because I didn't do a whole lot. So it was a pleasure. And I think that whatever we can do to get members on ESCs, I will definitely work to do that because it was a very fulfilling experience.
Great. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, this is Miguel Garcia.
There you are.
Yeah, I just want to thank the ESC. I know how much time it goes into reviewing these applications, but also just to remind folks the importance of these dollars and how much is going out into the community and the services that individuals need upon their reentry. Again, it's not a one size fits all, but an approach that I feel that many of those that applied have some sense of addressing in their communities, but just a reminder that a lot of these folks need these services, and hope to see the good work when we see the reports and the plans. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's actually such a great reminder, Miguel. This really is something to celebrate. There's a bunch of money going out in the community to assist people. We know California, if we've got nothing else, we have very high rents. And so assisting anybody that's trying to, get back into day-to-day living with rental assistance is massive. And I hope at some point down the road that we can have some positive stories come back and report to this board about the impacts that this assistance had. So while you're here, Tanya, have an assignment. Really very much would appreciate hearing some of those comments. Adam, do we have any members of the public?
We currently have no members of the public for this item.
Okay, and I'm once again looking to the board for a motion that would be inclusive of item 1 through 6 in terms of recommendations.
So Dean Grouden, I'll make the motion that we approve staff's recommendation with the addition that we direct BSCC staff to take actions consistent with the board's discussion in closed session.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Miguel, I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Villarosa,
Aye.
Mr. Grouden,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes.
Aye.
Chavez is not present during the vote. Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Abstain.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Budnick recused, Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion recused. Madam Chair, the motion carries for agenda item G.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We need to bring our recusals back.
I actually think Norma's going to stay out on this one too.
Okay. All right, Katrina, welcome. Moving on now to item H.
And likewise, Mr. Budnick, don't come back.
Don't come back. No, you stay right where you are.
No, I meant with him.
Oh, I see, I see, I see.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I am Katrina Jackson, a field representative with the Corrections Planning and Grant Programs Division, and I am here to present Agenda Item H. Agenda Item H requests funding approval for the California Violence Intervention and Prevention Grant Program, also known as CalVIP. The CalVIP request for proposal was developed and re-released after the board awarded $156 million to 79 grantees at its June meeting, leaving approximately $53 million in funding for competitive grants with the re-release of the RFP. As you can see on the slide, the board is administering a total of 227 million in the CalVIP funding over the next 3 years. All successful applicants provide a 100% cash or in-kind match to support the grant. In addition, all successful city applicants must pass through a minimum of 50% of grant funds received to one or more community-based organizations. Assembly Bill 1603 was enacted in 2019 and limited the eligibility to cities that were disproportionately impacted by violence and the community-based organizations that served them. It also placed emphasis on CBOs that are primarily dedicated to community safety or violence prevention. On July 15th of 2021, the board appointed board member Chief Mills as the ESC chair, and on June 9th, 2022, the board approved the re-release of the CalVIP RFP with proposals due on July 15th. A total of 64 proposals were received requesting $129 million in funding. After the initial technical review, 55 proposals in 3 categories, cities, community-based organizations, and small scope community-based organizations, moved forward for rating by the scoring panel, which included 5 cities, 37 CBOs, and 13 small scope CBOs, requesting approximately $111 million of the $53 million available in funding. Once the scoring panel completed the rating process, research staff placed applicants in a rank order for funding. 27 proposals are recommended for full funding, which include 5 cities, 14 community-based organizations, and 8 small scope community-based organizations, and 2 additional proposals are recommended for partial funding that fell at the funding cutoff. The grant period will begin October 1st of 2022 and end December 31st of 2025. The CalVIP award will fund a variety of projects from street outreach, mentoring, and case management. I will close by recommending that the board take the following action. Allocate the remaining fiscal year 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24 appropriations. Fund 5 city proposals, 14 community-based organization proposals, and 8 small scope community-based organization proposals. Partially fund Urban Peace Institute and Hope Now for Youth, which fell off at the funding cutoff on the CBO and small scope CBO rank ordered list. Authorize staff to continue to make awards from the rank ordered list if any applicant is unable to accept the award or relinquishes an award, first by offering funds to any partial awardee and then to the next highest ranked applicants. And lastly, authorize staff to continue to make awards from the rank ordered list if staff determines during the follow-up award making process that an applicant recommended for funding is ineligible, if a grantee becomes ineligible during the grant cycle,
or if the grant award is relinquished during the grant cycle. This concludes my presentation, Madam Chair. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? It's hard to say anybody, I'm not seeing, there we go. There we go. I'm seeing no raised hands.
In what I'm about.
And okay, thank you. And Chief Mills, thank you so much for your work on CalVIP. You've already given us gratitude about staff. You're welcome to say it again if you'd like to at this juncture.
Well, we have nothing but gratitude for your staff and the folks that work so hard on it. As everybody who's been the chair knows, all the work gets done by staff, and we sit there and try to look pretty, which can be kind of hard sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you. Any members of the public that wish to comment on this item?
We currently have 2 members of the public. The first one will be Jesus Sandoval.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to do the public comment. My name is Jesus Sandoval. I'm the Executive Director of the Commission on Gang Prevention Intervention. Today is a huge day for me because I'm sitting here listening to this committee and the big decisions that are being made. I'm a former gang member and I turned my life around in 1998. I'm actually sitting in a room with the other former gang members as we've been volunteering and participating and restoring our community for the past 20 years, from a grassroots to grass tops. And now this is the first time through the city of San Diego, with the support of Mayor Todd Gloria and my boss, Chida Warren, and community-based organizations that have committed themselves to improve life, the quality of life for youth and adults here in our community. I'm speaking from my heart, being that I had been shot in 1996, been stabbed. I've lost a lot of friends to the streets, to drugs, and to prisons. And now those guys that have reformed their lives, now they're part of this network to help for the Peacemaker Project here in the city of San Diego. And I'm so overwhelmed because it seems like the stars are lining up. And today we're also receiving an Excellence of Justice in Pursuit of Justice Award from the U.S. Attorney's Office here in San Diego. That's why I couldn't be there in person. And I'm sitting here listening to potentially getting funded to continue to do the work that we do here in San Diego. Because it truly does take a village to raise a child. And sometimes it takes tragedy and a child to unite the village for a common cause, which in this case is to reduce violence and to help save lives. And so that's all I wanted to say. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to serving our community, our city, to be a model that change is possible. And I'm here for any questions, comments, or concerns. And just, I wanted to consider this an honor and a privilege.
Oh, well, thank you for your remarks. I think you're a shot in the arm for all of us in the room. When we hear you say the road it took to get you here and that we're able to extend this grant award to you and your community. And congratulations on your award today. So it sounds like a pretty good day for you today. We're just glad to be a small part of it.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Henry Community Healer.
Henry, are you out there?
We'll move on to John Jones.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Jones III, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Violence Interruption and Prevention Programs with BOSS, Building Opportunities for Self-Sufficiency. In the sake of time, I just want to share 2 remarks. The first is to the chair, Linda Penner, as well as Scott Budnick. It's good to know that you're still part of the BSCC. I'm forever thrilled for the opportunity of working with you all as a member of the Prop 47 Executive Steering Committee. The second thing I want to share is, and this is more personal, but it connects to why this grant is so needed. As a single father, I'm born and raised in East Oakland, someone who has experienced violence and gun violence on both sides, as a perpetrator as well as a victim. And I moved out of Oakland, my hometown, in April of 2021. It was the hardest decision I ever had to make, but I did it because I didn't want my children to grow up in those same conditions that I and my friends grew up in. However, I was called back home 6 months later because I knew the job was not done. It's a privilege for me to have the opportunity to be able to relocate. But the truth is, everyone cannot move out their neighborhoods, nor should everybody even should want to move out who doesn't want to move out. So I am doubling down on my commitment to serve the beautiful people in my beloved hometown. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the time that you spent, your diligence in addressing this. And at the end, I will share, for me, violence is truly a mental issue. It's a health issue. People are hurting, and it really requires folks who we consider credible messengers, who have a certain amount of proximity and access to people, to be able to be part of that process of disrupting this violence that's not just taking place in California, but it's taking place across this country. So again, I want to thank you all for all the hard work you put into it, and I am looking forward to continuing to work right here in Oakland, California.
Thank you, John. Great remarks. I think I see Henry down there. Henry, are you there? No, gone again.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, gotcha.
Hi. Good afternoon. Just a quick question. On the cities, you mentioned 5 cities got these grants. Can you give us a list of what cities came in that category? And do you guys give people the grants based on how fancy and eloquent the proposals are, or are we giving out grants to impacted communities and impacted organizations that are actually dealing with these populations? So just if you clarify a little bit on some of our people that are on the phone, they had some questions on that. We don't want to bombard with a bunch of questions. If you could address that question.
Okay, thank you. We'll do our best right now. I can first begin to tell you that we do not award grants on how fancy they are. We work very hard, as I said earlier, to keep a very level playing field and to rate grant proposals based on what they present in their RFP. With that said, I think your second part of your question was who is next in line, or who?
No,
didn't
what
get-
cities? What cities? No, nothing to do with that. Just what cities and stuff,
What
so that people
cities?
know. Yeah, people know what cities to, what community to reach out to. That to at least get some of that support, because there's just too many young people dying all the time out here. A lot of people are under a lot of stress, and we want to see results. We want to see our investment going to these desperate needs. There's a lot of mothers without kids, whether they're doing life in prison or whether their kids are getting killed in the streets. And so we just want to make sure that we know what cities are going to be covered with some of that support, so that we can refer some of the clients
Yeah,
out there.
happy to do that. We had a graphic up, but there's only 5.
Madam Chair, I'll
5 or
jump in.
6. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Henry. And this is Katie Howard, Executive Director of the BSCC speaking. There's a tremendous amount of information on our website, bscc.ca.gov. I'm not going to go through all of the information. And as Katrina presented, we're awarding $53 million today, but that has followed very quickly on a large set of awards that were made earlier this year. For cities that were awarded today, it's the City of San Diego, City of Stockton, City of Delano, Moreno Valley, and Merced. And then please keep in mind a whole host of community-based organizations that will be providing services across the state were also awarded. This is in attachment H2, and I'm hopeful that people can easily get access to that information. Please follow up with Katrina directly if you have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
All right. That's it, Adam?
There are no
Okay.
more comments.
All right, back to the board. Any additional questions, comments? Aaron, did you want to say something?
No, I think Sheriff Groudon's about to cover it for me.
Okay. I'm asking then for a motion.
Dean Groudon, I'll make a motion that we approve staff's recommendation with the addition of the language to direct BSCC staff to take actions consistent with the board's discussion in closed session.
Thank you.
Dykus will second. Dykus will second.
Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Vera Rosa,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykus,
Aye.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Miss Vernon,
Aye.
Miss Guard,
Abstain.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Budnick recused, Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion recused. Madam Chair, the motion carries for agenda item H.
Thank you. Moving on to item I, Prop 47 grant.
And
program
we'll bring
evalu-
Ms. Kumpion back in the room.
Yes. You were a little quick on that. That was going to be my next remark. Damian?
All right. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Damian Renault, Field Representative with the Correction Planning and Grant Programs Division for Prop 47. Today, I'm presenting agenda item I, evaluation of program participation and analysis of outreach to underserved communities. As Katie mentioned in the Executive Director report, we are excited about these research and evaluation efforts that are aimed at improving our grant outreach and to analyze gaps in service based on the research we have conducted in the first 3 cohorts. Since 2017, the Prop 47 grant program has awarded approximately $350 million over 3 cohorts to 68 grantees and hundreds of community-based organizations to provide mental health and substance use disorder treatment services and diversion programs. Based on the in-house research our team has conducted, we have been able to identify issues that warrant more in-depth review, analysis, and recommendations to the board. This agenda item requests board approval for 2 distinct research projects. The evaluation of program participation project will evaluate the implementation of the Prop 47 grant program, including topics such as the procedures used for recruiting grantees to the program, the support, communication, and oversight provided throughout the duration of the grant, and accomplishments as a result of receiving Proposition 47 grant funds. BSCC staff will release a request for proposals not to exceed $300,000 to hire an independent outside evaluator to complete this evaluation. The second project in this proposal is an analysis of outreach to underserved communities. This project will evaluate effective strategies to engage participants who identify as Hispanic or Latino in mental health or substance use disorder treatment, with a focus on reducing racial disparities. As is generally required for research projects with human subjects, staff will submit the research proposal to an internal review board to ensure the safety and welfare of its participants. This project will be completed by BSCC staff in the research unit. I wanted to just quickly acknowledge the very professional and always well done work for these projects by Stacy Riley. In summary, staff recommendations are to approve a review and evaluation of the procedures for informing the field about the purpose and availability of Prop 47 grant funding with a focus on enhancing the number of qualified applicants across the state. Secondly, to approve an analysis of the existing grantees' experiences in reaching Hispanic and Latino participants in their grant programs with a focus on reducing racial and ethnic disparities in the population of people receiving treatment and services in the Prop 47 grant program. And lastly, to approve the drafting and submission of an internal review board for approval to ensure procedures and protocols meet the requirements for the protection of human subjects in research. And this concludes my report. I'm happy to take your questions. And Stacy Riley from the research division is here also to answer any technical questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. We're having a little slight conversation.
All right.
Because we're coming at you.
Oh, wonderful. Coming at me or possibly Stacy?
Yeah, I noticed you point
I
to.
might want to start
Stand up, Stacy.
scooting
They
out,
can't see you back
scooting out to
there.
the
You are.
side a little bit.
Stacy's shy. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Damien, and we haven't met before, but thank you for your presentation. So I have one comment on the first portion, the evaluation of program participation. One thing that I've heard consistently from small counties, and I don't have the prior RFPs in front of me, but a lot of the smaller counties are in, or say that they're ineligible because they don't have CBOs that exist in those counties that can, because there is a requirement to have a CBO, correct?
That's correct.
And a lot of the small counties are saying they're ineligible because they don't have CBOs in existence in their small counties. So I wonder if there would be if that's something we should look at, is just eligibility as a whole. Because down the road, we may consider some kind of an exception for those small counties where we make, governmental agencies eligible, just so they would be eligible for funding.
I'll jump in. Yes,
Yeah.
this is Katie Howard, Executive Director. Those are exactly the sorts of things that we want to include in this evaluation. What are some of the impediments and obstacles that potential applicants have faced that have prevented them from applying? And then, of course, we would bring some suggestions back to the board for modifications to future RFPs. And of course, there's always a balance. Our Prop 47 executive steering committees have placed a really big emphasis on partnerships with CBOs, but perhaps some flexibility needs to be built in as well. So thanks a lot for the question, Chair.
I appreciate it. That's super helpful. And I think, as I go to these association meetings, I'm constantly reminding them Prop 47 is ongoing funding. That is something that we want as much of those funds to be out in the field as possible. So if you have anything to add to this discussion in terms of barriers that be you a large community, small community, a CBO have, please keep us informed. I think what we really want to do is to ensure that as much of this is out in the field as possibly can be done. So looking to any other board members for comments or questions on this. Anybody from the public, Adam?
I have no members of the public.
Thank you. Back to the board for a motion.
Kathleen Nash, Allison, motion to adopt the staff's recommendations.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
This is Chief Haynes. I'll second.
Thank you. Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Vera Rosa,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Miss Vernon,
Aye.
Miss Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
I see I don't see him on the.
Mr. Mills is not present. Mr. Budnick,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Miss Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on now. Thank you, Damien. Shy Stacy back there. Item J, there's a famous and familiar person before us now today. Is that you, Allison Ganter?
Delightful one.
Yes.
Wrapping it all up for
Wrap.
everybody today. Good afternoon, Chair Penner and members of the board, and members of the community and colleagues. I'm Allison Ganter, Deputy Director with the Facility Standards and Operations Division here at the board. And I'm here before you to provide the regular update of detention facility inspections and update of any non-compliance issues. And you have in your agenda the attachments that outline the current items of non-compliance and those that have been corrected.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you speak up a little bit? People on Zoom are saying they're having a hard time hearing.
Yes, that is very unusual that people can't hear me, so I'm happy to do so. And as you will see in the attachments, we are not recommending that any sheriffs or chief appear before the board at this time due to an item of non-compliance. And I'll go over the adult items quickly. And a quick reminder of the codes that you see there. The top one, the one Del Norte County, should be in yellow. So green dot means that they're in corrective action. They're in a corrective action process. Yellow and gray means they're working through corrective action. And we as staff don't believe that there is a substantial threat to safety or security or health of people housed in the facilities or working in the facilities. And red can mean several things. We don't have any of those right now, but that can mean that there's been no response to the BSCC related to corrective action, or that there is a substantial threat at the facility. So starting with the adult items, a couple of new items have been added to the list, but the majority of items of non-compliance that have been added have dropped down to the bottom because those items have been corrected within the 30 to 45 days it takes to get the report out to the facility. You'll see that the top two counties, Del Norte County and San Bernardino County, are in corrective action plan, and BSCC staff will be visiting those facilities within the next week or so to follow up on items of non-compliance. And I'm being assured from our team that those items will be corrected shortly. And again, our staff remain in continuous contact with the agencies to make sure that they're moving properly toward corrective action when items of non-compliance are outstanding and take longer than the 30 days to correct them. So I'll switch over to the juvenile update, and you will see that Los Angeles has 2 outstanding items of non-compliance in one camp, Camp Rocky. You'll recall that suitability does not apply to camp facilities in Welfare and Institutions Code Section 209B. D rather, suitability applies to juvenile halls only. So we are working with Los Angeles. Those 2 items are being actively worked on right now. Lisa Southwell is in contact with them, and they will be corrected shortly. And those are the only outstanding items of non-compliance at this time. All of the other items on the list have been corrected. I believe that we are pending 2 more items of non-compliance pending final report out to counties. So you might see some more on the next update. But again, usually those items are being resolved within 30 to 45 days and well within the period of time in our enhanced inspection process. So a few reminders before I close and ask if there are any questions. This current inspection cycle will conclude on December 31st, 2022. We'll start a brand new cycle on January 1st. We're getting ready for that cycle. We have begun. We've conducted several unannounced inspections over the past year. In the next inspection cycle, we will be conducting 2 inspections, annual inspections of all local adult and juvenile detention facilities. We'll be doing a comprehensive inspection the first year, and we'll be doing targeted inspections in the second year. And unannounced inspections will continue to occur. We'll continue to provide updates to the board and the public. And we're also looking forward to, thank you for approving agenda item C. We're also looking forward to updated regulations for the adult facilities in January. So I'm happy to take any questions you have and ask that you approve the recommendations. Go ahead.
Dean Groudon, I just have one comment. So one of the most consistent deficiencies that's noted in your report is number of personnel. And I just wanted to say publicly that that is a huge issue right now. I know all employers are struggling, but in particular, public safety is struggling to hire people, whether it be sheriff's offices, police departments, probation agencies. And I mean, the reality is we've had a cultural change and there aren't a lot of people interested in doing that line of work. So I don't know, but I think we're really in the state, I think we're really facing a crisis in the future in that area. So I just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. Yeah, our team is, as we gear up for our next inspection cycle, we'll certainly be in contact with you all and thinking about this issue as well. It's certainly a looming and large and present issue.
Is it something you're seeing commonly out on your inspections?
Absolutely. It's staffing, it's hiring, it's recruitment, it's retention. It's time to get people on board. It's certainly going to be an issue that we're going to deal with in the next inspection cycle. We don't have that much time, but we do have some time to talk about it before we start the next cycle. And our team is very, very aware of the impact.
Any other remarks from board members? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Madam Chair. I just want to echo the similar comments to Sheriff Groudon. It's kind of seen on my tours some staff shortages across some of the counties, and just how, while it does impact some of the staff, it will eventually impact those that are in custody with the programming they're receiving. And if we're focused on rehabilitative treatment, I think we need to put our heads together or relay this message in order not to have that bad experience later on in the future. So I hope that we could resolve that or have some discussions on how to address the staff shortages within the regulations to address programming later on in the future that I see going on.
Thank you. Appreciate those remarks. I think that's something we're going to have to take a deeper dive into and see what kind of resolution we can help with. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Katie Howard speaking. When I think back to the beginning of this inspection cycle, which was January of 2020, that's when Governor Newsom gave us specific direction to enhance our inspections process. And I want to acknowledge Allison and the FSO team, the amount of work that has gone into rebuilding our systems, improving our systems, and I must say, massively increasing the transparency to this board and the public about how we do our inspections, what we find in those inspections, and how we work with the local detention facilities to hold them accountable and to address issues of noncompliance as they are identified. I've met the new field representatives that Allison has brought on the team as inspectors. We have hired an absolutely terrific analytical staff, Ginger Wolf and her team. And I just have to acknowledge here we are almost through this 2-year cycle and how far we have come in really building a much, much, much better system. We've always done a great job on inspections. That's my non-objective opinion. But they've gotten way, way better in terms of the public facing aspects of the work that we do. So I just wanted to say thanks and great job.
Yeah, I appreciate your remarks, Kate. You're absolutely right. And with closer inspections, we find issues that have to be addressed that arise. And while they may be to no fault of the agency, we're going to have to address those and be flexible as we move forward. So kudos to you, Allison, and your staff.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I definitely want to acknowledge our team. It's an incredible team. They started off incredible and they've only gotten more incredible. So I feel very, very grateful to have the support of our team. Do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone in the public wish to address this agenda item?
There are no public comments for this item.
All right. Thank you. And Allison, you always bring this adjourned part of the meeting with you when you join us, and we are ready to adjourn the meeting. But prior to doing that, if there's anyone in the public that would like to comment on any item, whether it be on this agenda or not, this is the time appropriate to do that. Adam?
Currently, I have one member of the public who wishes to make a comment, and that would be Sherry. Oh God.
Sherry's coming up. She's going to tell us how to pronounce her name. Thank you, Sherry, for helping Adam out there.
Good morning and greetings, Madam Chair and Board, BSCC. I'm really just here to say thank you. The COSA Fresno has been awarded to Fresno Pacific University for Cohort 1. And just wanted to say thank you for that. We're a reentry program that serves long-term incarceration. Yeah, good. Long-term individuals have been incarcerated long-term for serious and violent harm and sexual harm. And through this funding, we have been able to increase the depth and breadth of our services under the amazing leadership of Kimberly Gragston at the time of this particular Cohort 1. And wanted to say thank you for this award for Cohort 3 in advance, because a new leadership with Jaime Leyva will be taking over from there, who has been system impacted and is a phenomenal leader as well. So we have On behalf of the group that we have been working with, 50 individuals that have completed the COSA process, they've been successfully reintegrated. And I just wanted to say thank you for the funding, and a special thanks to Tanya Thompson and her team. The staff is incredible to work with. So I just want to say they have been coaches and mentors and guides, and really vibrant for us to be working with. And I want to say thanks to them for that. And on behalf of the 400 individuals on a waiting list for COSA Fresno right now, our current core members and volunteers that are experiencing transformation and successful reintegration, and the money that we're saving across our systems, and for our community that's healthier and more vibrant every day. I just want to say really heartfelt thank you to all of you for this work and for replicating community-based initiatives here.
Thank you, Sherry, for making Fresno proud. I'm here. Fresno's in the house. We're super excited.
Shout out also for Hope Now for You. Super worthy.
Great, 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 great.
There are no
Okay,
more public.
there are no more public comments. I have very little comment. Anybody else like a closing comment?
Because I can't help
Oh,
myself. I can't.
Katie does want to have a closing. comment.
I'm very well that everybody on this board and in this room knows how to read. Please be sure to write in indelible ink the board meeting dates for next year. We posted them as a consent item. We've checked with you in advance. So we really look forward to those meetings next year. And thank you all.
And along that lines, if you'll note, there are locations to be determined for those meetings, and we hope to work with all of you to expand a little bit on our meeting locations for the benefit of everybody. Even though the IT staff is rolling their eyes. You really cannot roll your eyes at the chair. And it happens all the time. Okay, thank you all, and this meeting is officially adjourned.